Hello everyone, as you can see it's Nick with the latest and greatest on the menopause. So I wanted to do a vlog because my last vlog was about going back on HRT after having a rest, and actually it was a bit of a failure really, because I just started feeling really sick and nauseous, and I know from discussions I've had with my menopause consultant, who I say, and sorry, just sitting up, I've often said, and I think it's worth repeating, is just amazing. And one of the really truly amazing things about him is he doesn't just treat me, he actually educates me, and he explains things, and he helps me to manage myself and my symptoms and to be able to understand what's happening. And I know from my discussions with him that nausea is really my liver talking to me, telling me that it's struggling with stuff I'm putting into my body. So I didn't like the nausea. The HRT gel that I'd been on didn't suit at all. It just felt a bit too aggressive. I think that's the best way to describe it. So I tried to go back onto my HRT patches, and yeah, I felt nauseous. So that's that. So I'm now coming up to, I've kind of lost count, but I think it's roughly 8 or 9 weeks without any HRT. Due to see my consultant not until December actually, so a little while. And it's really interesting because I kind of feel okay. That's really interesting. So as context, I've been on HRT for over 6 years, and in the early days I just cannot imagine what life would have been like if I hadn't have found HRT. It was life-changing, life-saving, and I don't think that's an overstatement at all. I literally couldn't get out of bed. I was completely disengaged in life. I ached. I just couldn't get through the day. And interestingly, sorry if you can hear banging in the background. I don't know if you'll pick this up on the vlog, but my son's drumming in his room. So but it's not been like that. So I was a little bit teary, and I guess I definitely had some hormonal crashes when I first came off it a few weeks ago, but I seem to have plateaued out. And I thought, actually, there's a few observations I'd like to share. So one is, I do wonder whether my body, the nausea is perhaps my body trying to talk to me to say, oh, well, maybe we're over the worst of it. Maybe it's okay. And that's why I came off it, to kind of test that hypothesis. And I am feeling okay. And then the other things I thought about were, well, what's different now to 6 years ago? Because there's no way I could have done this 6 years ago. I know I couldn't, because I tried, and it was just dreadful. So what are the big things that have changed in my life from 6 years ago? One really big thing is my kids are 6 years older, and that means they're pretty much, they're teenagers, they're little mini adults. So 6 years ago, they were all still in primary school. So I was running around, and I was doing all kinds of things. I was on school runs and then after school activities, and it was really busy, and I just felt really exhausted and stretched all the time. And the other big thing that is coupled with that is 6 years ago, pre-COVID, my husband worked away for 5 days a week. So I was on my own with the 3 kids, early Monday morning till late Friday night, sometimes into the weekend, stretching myself between 3 kids, doing all of the activities, everything. So they're 2 really big things, because my kids are so much more independent now. I don't do nearly anywhere near the level of running around that I used to. And also, since COVID, my husband's not away 5 days a week anymore. So he might be away a couple of days a week, but he works from home a lot more and doesn't do the level of travelling that he used to do. So I actually do have a lot more help, and, I can share stuff, because he is really good at that. Don't tell him, but he is. So there are 2 really big things. The other things that I thought about, what else? Well, I think there's been loads of changes just in the way that I manage my lifestyle. So I definitely eat far lighter diet. So I used to eat a lot more meat. So I'll give you an example. I always used to probably order a ribeye or a sirloin steak if I was having steak. Now I wouldn't order anything but a fillet, because my body doesn't like that amount of fat. I tend to eat much more of a vegetarian diet, or more chicken and fish. So I definitely think there's something in the food I eat, and my body just tells me what it feels good with and what it doesn't. So I tend to follow that. I Also during that time, I retrained as a soul midwife. Now what a soul midwife does is, in the way that a midwife brings a soul into the world, a soul midwife helps a soul to depart this world. So I am emotional, psychological and spiritual support for people who are journeying through end of life. So I retrained as a soul midwife and effectively went back to work in that capacity, as opposed to prior to me taking a career break with my kids. I was management consultants. It was a very, very different world, very, very different. And I think there's definitely something in the in that I feel an awful lot more fulfilled. I get an awful, it's hugely rewarding and very, very fulfilling, but also I don't work full time at all. So I think there is definitely something around balance as well. One of the biggest things of late, well, it's about 4 months ago now, I started really looking after myself physically. And I started, big shout out to our local YMCA, which is just, honestly, they're just bloody amazing. It is such an inclusive, beautiful place. And, you know, you don't, I wouldn't say you have a gym trainer. I think you have a coach. I think it's much more engaging. You know, I'm really educated. I'm really taken care of in the classes I go to, and it really is a way of life. And I started about 4 months ago. I joined our local YMCA and I started going to what are called the strength and conditioning classes, because I'd had surgery on my Achilles tendon when it ruptured, and I needed to do some work to build the muscle back up and basically rehabilitate my leg. And I've never lifted weights in my life. I've never done anything like that. You know, I've always, you know, I've ran or I've swam or played squash, which is how I did the how I had the rupture in the first place, playing squash. But I've never done stuff like, you know, lifting weights and all that kind of jazz. And I did it because obviously I wanted to work on my leg and I wanted to get better, and it's brilliant. And I've been going to probably about 3 classes a week for 4 months, and really building my strength and learning to you know, get stronger and focus on stuff. And yeah, it's difficult to put into words how good they are, but it's very inclusive, extremely educational and really, really accessible. I don't rock up and feel like I'm being pushed to do things completely out of my zone. It's been a beautiful process where I've been taught to do things from the ground up, basically. And it's really, the ethos is very much about getting fit for life. So I think that's played a part. So I think that type of exercise has played a part. And the other big thing is that I also found a really fantastic yoga teacher. I'll tag both of them in this video because she is on YouTube. And I go to her yoga classes, but I also invested in doing some one-to-one sessions because she does hypnotherapy and yoga and breath work. And her yoga that she does with me, obviously because of my leg, you know, we do a lot of work around my leg, but it's also whatever we need to work on that week. And that seems to have made a fundamental difference too. So I guess looking back over the last 6 years and going, well, how am I managing now without HRT and I wasn't before? It may well be, and I don't know. So this isn't an exact science, right? This is just me, as always, trying to observe and understand what's going on. You know, we do as best as we can, right, until we know better, and then we do better. I guess that's the kind of intent here. So what is it that is different in my life now? Well, maybe I was always going to get to this point. Maybe 6 years on, maybe my body has just moved on. Maybe my brain is just saying, actually, I can start to learn to fire without you having the HRT. I can start to learn to cope with the level of estrogen, or not, that you have. It's obviously much lower than it was, if at all. Maybe all of these lifestyle changes, and I think it is quite interesting that I definitely feel that I have less dependency on me. My kids are less dependent in terms of me physically needing to do things. I mean, obviously, you know, the emotional and the mental support is always there, but physically I'm not doing school runs. I'm not, you know, if I come home from work and I'm tired, I can actually say, you know, guys, will you cook dinner tonight? Because I'm cream crackered. That things like that make a really big difference. You know, I can say, there's a stack of jobs that need doing. I'm just too knackered to do them all. And maybe I should be saying that anyway. Let's share them between us. My husband's here a lot more. So there's a lot less pressure on me to do it all. And I think there is something very much, particularly around the domestic arena. And I do wonder, having kids slightly later in life, I suppose. I went into the menopause with kids that were still dependent on me. And the menopause, if we look at it from an energetic and, I can't think of the word, kind of period of our life. It's basically when we're letting go of being that, fertile woman who is, able to have children and is the younger phase of our life, and we're transforming and transitioning to being the wiser older woman, right? Who's no longer fertile. So maybe there's something in the fact that your body just goes, so therefore I don't want to do all of this looking after people. I don't want to do all of this domestic stuff. I don't want to have young kids that are reliant on me. I need some more freedom, because if we look at the natural animal world, that's what will be happening. So I think maybe there's something in that. I do definitely think the type of exercise, the yoga and the strength and conditioning, and I also go out in the mornings with my friend, just the two of us. We go out early in the morning for a walk, and that is also hugely beneficial. Even if you just put the physical benefits on one side, that the mental health benefits of that are really, really something. So I wonder if all of that's playing a part. I wonder if just paying attention to the foods that make me feel good and don't feel so good play a part. I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but I've always really liked my wine. Over the years, I've been a very big drinker. And I just don't drink like I used to at all. My body just doesn't like it. I'm very happy to have a glass of wine with dinner, and I really like that. But I couldn't sit and, drink a bottle of wine like I used to. So that's something else that I've observed as well. Maybe it's being in flow. I don't know. I think I'm starting to ramble a little bit. But I don't know, 8 or 9 weeks now without HRT, and I'm doing okay. I am doing okay. And I think, it is 6 years since I first started HRT. So as ever, the menopause does move. It'll be a really interesting conversation. It's the start of December. I'm back with a menopause consultant. So, I'll feed back from that. But I think it's important to share this. Who knows what next week will bring? I may have a very different story. I'm not even going to think about it. I'm just going to take each day as it comes. And I know that a lot of people still comment on the vlog I did a few years ago now, the raw reality of the menopause. And do you know what? I am so grateful that I recorded things in the moment, because I would never, as I sit here now, I know I felt that bad, but I can't really remember how that felt. So recording the vlogs at the point in time that I do is really helpful, because I can go back to them and go, that is how bad I felt. That was absolutely authentic and true. But I was really blessed because I had support. So what I now know sitting here is that it does pass, and there are ways through it. And I think just intuitively at that point in time when things were really hard in those early, very dark days of the menopause, I am so grateful, so incredibly grateful that the universe gave me the right people to help me through. Gave me such a superb GP who was the gateway to my menopause consultant. I had family and friends that took it seriously, that didn't, poo-poo it and just tell me to get over it and I'd be okay. I was given every opportunity to do something with it, and I am hugely grateful. And I'm really grateful that I did the vlogs, because I think it's really important, because I don't want to ever forget that, because I think it's so important to recognize how debilitating it can be, so that we can keep fighting to get the right support to women at the right time. And I also would hope that this is a hopeful vlog in terms of saying, here I am all these years later, and I don't feel like that anymore. I don't really have that primal rage. It's kind of like it's burnt out, like it's fire. Of course I still lose my shit sometimes, we're human beings, this is life, right? But not in that very desperate way. It's very rare that I feel that primal and desperate. So it does pass, and it is a process, and you do move on. And I'm sure I will face different challenges in the future, and I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But it is a really nice place to be at the minute, where I'm okay. I'm feeling pretty grounded. I'm okay. Energy's not too bad. Aches and pains aren't too bad. Moods aren't too bad. So absolutely there is light at the end of the tunnel. It is a process. And I hope that I'm an example of, you know, where we can get to when, you know, sorry, I'm struggling a little bit for words. Obviously the brain fog's not completely gone away. But I think it's really important that, you know, I just keep beating the drum to try and make sure we can get as much support to as many women as possible, because it was so important for me and was probably a fundamental part of how I've got to where I am. So it does pass. It absolutely has, you know, it's a process and it does pass. And I think that's really important to hang on to. So yeah, I will let you know the latest and greatest when I know the latest and greatest. All right, take care, lots of love.